Simple talking head videos are often the hardest types of videos to make for most people. You're probably thinking, how can you say simple and then hardest in the same sentence? Let me explain. While in theory they're simple, most of us overcomplicate them and worry about everything else under the sun except the message we are trying to get across. So in the next 10 minutes, I'm gonna show you my exact setup that gets thousands of views on Instagram and 3 things that will instantly make your videos more engaging.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what
If you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Denzil. I'm a filmmaker and content creator, and I've spent the last 1.5 years growing my personal brand through video content. But there was a time where I never filmed myself talking on camera because, well, I sucked, okay? Now, I'm not saying that I'm the best or anything now, but I've come a long way, and that is exactly the point of this video. So let's jump straight in and tackle the first elephant in the room, lighting. Lighting is often the first thing people ask me about when it comes to filming themselves, and for good reason, because lighting really holds the torch when it comes to the quality of your visuals. Now, good usage of lighting is much more valuable than an expensive camera. Now, when I say this, I don't mean you have to go out there and purchase the most expensive lights. But if you are serious about creating content, I do recommend you buying an affordable light so that you don't have to rely upon the unpredictable sunlight. Now, if you live in the UK like I do, you know exactly what I mean. But how do I typically use my lights? Well, usually I just set up with one main light for most of my talking head videos because it allows me to create so much faster. Repositioning one light is a lot faster than juggling multiple. And most of the time I place this light on the side where there is already natural lighting, and this technique is called motivated lighting. This allows the viewer to imagine that the light is naturally coming from the source, even when it's not. Now, don't get it twisted, I do like to throw in a little bit of other lights in there just to spice up the shot sometimes. For example, in this shot, we've got that background light there, just giving a little bit of ambience behind me. And we've got this. You may have thought that came from the blinds. That's actually a light. It's just a spotlight attached with little gobo slides, which give the impression that it's coming from the blinds. But for a more in-depth breakdown of how I set up with only one light, check out this video. It will give you all the basics to get up and running as soon as possible. And moving on to arguably the most important aspect of talking head videos like this, audio. You've probably heard this before, but if you haven't, people will sometimes forgive bad visuals, or they won't forgive bad audio. And let's be honest, neither would you. You can only sit for so long listening to something that sounds a bit like this. Right now we're just using the mic straight from the camera. It's never really going to be the optimum solution. So we're going to turn on the actual DJI mic mini and see the difference. All right, so we just turned on our mic and already you can hear a clear difference. This is without even being run through enhancers or anything through software. This is straight out of the microphone. Way better than that muffled kind of tin sound you heard before. So you want to make sure you're using a mic. Now, once again, you don't have to break the bank. There are so many wireless mics you can find on Amazon that will get you halfway there until you are ready to invest further down the line. But let's assume you have no money for a mic. You went and splashed on the iPhone 17 and now you're feeling the pinch, you broke, okay? You can still use software to enhance your voice. For example, Adobe Podcast is a really popular one, but it's not the only one. CapCut, DaVinci Resolve, Premiere Pro, they all have this feature directly inside their apps. Now, we're gonna move on to camera positioning and framing. Ideally, when filming ourselves, we wanna make sure that we are not chopping off the top of our head and we are giving ourselves some headroom. If we're talking directly to the camera, a bit like this, we can use the rule of thirds grid to center ourselves. Many cameras have this grid feature already, so you just need to toggle it on. Same thing if you're using your iPhone or Android. Another really important thing we need to consider is being able to repurpose long form video to short form. So we want to make sure that when filming, we leave enough room on the sides for us to crop down later or be able to punch in and out. Now, if you're filming in a pretty small space, a cool trick is to shoot into the corner of the room. This helps you add a bit more depth to your shot and allows you to be separated from the background. If possible, I would avoid shooting right up against a wall, because not only is it boring, it's also a recipe for those ugly shadows, and nobody wants to see that. So let me show you an example of why shooting a little wider works really well and how you can use it for both your long form and short form videos. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about framing and composition, I created this video that will explain it in a bit more detail so you can really get started with your storytelling. And these next two topics are all about how we talk to the camera, which arguably might be many people's biggest blocker when it comes to filming themselves. Okay, we're at the part of the video where we're going to talk a bit about scripting versus riffing versus bullet points. And let me start by saying there is no wrong or right way to talk to the camera. See, when it comes to how you deliver the information, experimentation is key. Finding out what works for you and what feels the most natural to where you are right now is the most important thing. This is why each one of these approaches are completely viable and you can just bounce between them, which is kind of what I do. It just depends on the type of content I'm putting out. And I'll explain that in a minute. But first, let's go over some pros and cons of each. Starting with scripting. Scripting is amazing if you have a lot of information that you want to share and you don't want to end up rambling. It's great for keeping you focused, and it's even better for helping you to fully flesh out your ideas during the planning phase, for example. I use scripting for videos like this one, where I want to make sure that the video is packed with as much useful information as possible with minimal fluff. Okay. Now, some downsides to scripting is that it can be very time consuming, especially when you just start out, as you probably won't be that used to writing down your own thoughts most of the time. If you don't have a teleprompter and you have a pretty lengthy script, it's also going to take a pretty long time to go through all of that, as you have to memorize chunks of text at a time. And finally, if you do have a teleprompter and you are reading from a script, that does take practice to come across feeling natural. If you're not used to it, you might come across a little bit stiff or robotic. Next up, let's touch on riffing. So riffing just means like off the top of your head, kind of improvising, if you will. And for those who are good at this, it is an immensely powerful approach. Not only saves time, but it means you are probably the most authentic while doing it. Riffing for me works really well when I'm kind of giving my perspective on something or talking through an experience that I've had personally. But the downsides of riffing, it can leave a lot of room for rambling or a story that just feels kind of fragmented, which isn't the greatest when you're trying to teach something or present something to others. And it also leaves you room to potentially repeat a point that you have already made early on in the video. As when we talk freely, points often merge and overlap with each other. So the last type of delivery we'll cover today is bullet points. Now, this is probably the sweet spot between both the previous ones. It allows us to have the structure and the framework of a script, for example, without restricting us to copy it word for word. And in addition to this, it's a very time efficient way to come up with ideas in the first place. See, you don't need to sit down for hours writing, and in the time it would take to script one video, you could potentially have laid out the idea for 3 or 4 with bullet points. Now, the downside is if you're not great at talking through bullet points and expanding on them, you may struggle here, as it doesn't really hold your hand as much as scripting does. I think it has the least drawbacks out of all 3, but it would require you to be pretty comfortable with whatever you're going to talk about. The final topic we're going to cover today is about how to come across more natural on camera with your body language. So let's talk a bit about our general camera presence, okay? So there's this misconception that when you hear people say you should look into the lens, people often take that a little bit too far. So they end up doing something that looks a little bit like this. They'll stare into the lens, barely blinking, thinking they can't look away for a single second, otherwise they'll have to start the whole video all over again. You see how uncomfortable this makes me look? All right, so I'm here to tell you, you don't need to be doing all of that, okay? Something that has worked for me incredibly well is imagining I'm talking to just one person. And what do I do when I'm talking to one person? Well, I'm doing it right now. I'm being expressive, because that's who I am when I talk. I look at you, but I also look everywhere else when I'm trying to explain something. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean I should just literally not look at the lens and look everywhere else and barely hold eye contact the entire time. No, that's not what I'm saying. It just means it's okay to break eye contact every now and then with a camera, just like you would a normal person. Because let's face it, somebody who's staring at you the whole time without breaking eye contact, I don't know about you, but to me, that's just creepy as hell. That's just to me. So another technique I like to use to make myself feel comfortable is these hand gestures. You see, when I look at people who are talking on camera, but they barely move an inch, to me, they look very uncomfortable and a bit stiff, which is why I use my hands just to make me feel like it's a real conversation and to accentuate any points that I'm actually trying to make. This helps me to relax and feel way less formal, which it kind of just brings me to more of my natural state. Okay, so we got through quite a bit there, and if you are still here at this point, first and foremost, you are the best, and I appreciate it. And secondly, I'd love for you to try and pick a technique to work on ahead of your next video. And let me know in the comments which one you found the most helpful. I also have one more gift for you. See, I've created a simple shot list guide to help you with storytelling, and you can find it in the description below, and it's completely free. Now, if you found this video helpful in any way, I'd love for you to drop me a like and a subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace and love every single time. Denzil.